When I first reviewed Persona 5 back in 2017, I loved it. In fact, I called it easily one of the best Japanese role-playing games I've played this entire generation. I've been reflecting a lot on that 3-year-old review while playing through Persona 5 Royal, a just-released version of the game that adds a bunch of new characters, story threads, locations, and more. It's the definitive version of a stellar RPG, there's just no question about it. This is the same epic adventure that I loved all those years ago, only now with a lot more content. But will that be enough to entice new players? And more importantly, is Royal worth buying if you've already played the original game? Well, those answers are surprisingly complicated. No matter if you're new to the game or a close acquaintance of the Phantom Thieves, the story remains the same. Persona 5 follows the journey of a teenage boy who is shipped off to live in Tokyo after getting into some legal trouble back at home. Hoping to avoid the stigma of the trial, he shacks up with a cranky old man who runs a failing restaurant with zero patience for a delinquent kid. With no friends, a criminal record, and only a storage room to live in, things are definitely looking bleak for our hero. But life begins to improve once he meets Ryuji, a former track star who has a troubled past of his own. The two hit it off immediately and quickly become close friends, thanks in large part to a shared experience where they end up being transported into a mysterious castle run by one of the school's creepy teachers. This sets up a fun mystery where you're not only attempting to bring the teacher to justice, but also figure out just why you're able to seemingly jump from one reality to another and summon magical creatures known as personas. Now, it won't take long for our hero's circle of friends to expand and form into a group known as the Phantom Thieves. This name is derived from the fact that they're literally jumping into a person's metaverse and stealing the thing they desire the most. Without getting too technical, this will force a change of heart and make the wrongdoers confess their sins and accept responsibilities for their acts. It's an addictive little power that proves too enticing to do just once, so the ragtag team of wannabe superheroes constantly finds themselves on the hunt for more adults committing evil acts. Look, the truth is that this is only barely scratching the surface of what's going on in Persona 5 Royal. There's a story early on about weird car and train accidents that keep happening throughout Tokyo, a famous artist with a shady past, the existential crisis of a talking cat, and a school principal that will seemingly stop at nothing to find those pesky Phantom Thieves. Oh, and did I mention that most of the game is told through flashbacks, since we see at the start that our hero, codenamed Joker, has been arrested by the police and is being interrogated deep underground in a windowless room. Ugh, this is a game juggling so many stories and characters that it's no wonder it takes well over 100 hours to finally see the brand new ending. Now, believe it or not, Royal actually adds to the madness by including 2 new characters, a fellow student named Kasumi, and Maruki, the school counselor who's been brought in after tragedy befalls Shujin Academy. These two seamlessly blend in with the rest of the cast, quietly building onto the story while waiting for just the right time to reveal their secrets. Kasumi is a star gymnast who can teach the Phantom Thieves a few new tricks, while Maruki offers Joker and his friends a safe place to vent their teenage angst. While things may be spiraling out of control in the real world, the same cannot be said inside the metaverse. It's here where the Phantom Thieves have all the power, thanks to their powerful personas and ability to wield guns, swords, and all kinds of other weapons. The combat in Persona 5 is fast and streamlined, giving us a system where things like attack and guard and items are all mapped to the face buttons, and most battles happen at a rapid pace. Royal also adds a new cinematic move called Showtime that pairs some of your favorite characters together in a cool animated sequence. What I love about Persona is that instead of sticking with the orcs and goblins and other role-playing cliches, this franchise has always taken a more stylish approach. The story is based in what appears to be present day, but the dungeons are the very definition of unpredictable. We start out fighting in a giant castle, which quickly leads to jumping in and out of paintings in a warped art museum, fighting through space in a sci-fi level, and fending off giant birds on top of a pyramid. And you know, that's the thing about Persona 5. It's full of ideas that you rarely see in role-playing games. In fact, there are a lot of stretches in the game where it barely feels like a JRPG. So much of this game is about trying to juggle the dungeon crawling with the everyday responsibilities of being in high school. You'll have to study for tests, socialize with friends, go on to field trips, take on part-time jobs, keep up on texts, and even date. And with only a limited time in each day, you'll have to make sacrifices in order to get everything done and steal the treasure in time. Royal is constantly pulling you in a bunch of different directions, which helps to remind you what it's like to be a teenager with an active social life. Now, as somebody who played through the original game 3 years ago, I found this version of Persona 5 to be both compelling and frustrating. Don't get me wrong, everything that I loved about the vanilla release is back and better than ever in Royal, but there's a catch. I gotta admit that I spent a large chunk of time wondering what Kasumi and Maruki were up to and what they had to do with the story. I patiently waited to see what the game was building up to, all while worrying that there wouldn't be any payoff. The good news is that the game definitely pays off the introduction of these two new characters. Unfortunately, it takes beating the original game all over again just to see the meat of the new content. Yeah, this is the point where I feel the need to remind you that Persona 5 is not a short game. It took me close to 100 hours just to get to what used to be the final boss and kick its ass. But instead of giving us the original ending, Royal shakes things up and adds another 15-ish hours to the adventure. This includes a new palace to explore, new enemies to fight, more dates to go on, and even a tougher end boss to deal with. Best of all, it doesn't feel like filler. The twists and reveals actually help to reshape my thoughts on the original story to the point where I doubt I'll ever be able to look at Persona 5 the same way. But again, that comes after a 100-hour adventure that largely plays out exactly the same way. This is a tricky situation for the developers because Royal is more than just a simple DLC pack. You really do need to play through the full game to get to know these new characters in order for the added content to make any sense and be satisfying. What's more, it's hard to talk about what makes the new palace and characters so interesting without revealing major spoilers, which I'm not about to do here. Replaying the game in full is a big commitment, and I can imagine a lot of returning players looking at it and wondering if they would even have the time to get to the new content. All this really benefits people that are playing Persona 5 for the first time, as they'll be too wrapped up in the story to care about the differences between versions. And yet, I feel like the new content is designed not for the new players, but rather for the hardcore fans. The people who have already played through the game. The ripple effects brought on by introducing new characters is fascinating to watch, and the new ending works because it knows what you're expecting to happen. There's also a lot of fan service that feels like it was put in there to shut up the fanatical shippers on Reddit. This is the definitive version and is easy to recommend for new players, but Persona 5 vets will need to be ready for a major time commitment before getting to the new content. Make no mistake about it, Persona 5 Royal is an incredibly long, deep, and varied role-playing game with a compelling story that mixes the best elements from Inception and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. The new characters, locations, missions, and stories make an already epic adventure that much better, though we have to wait for a really long time for the satisfying payoff. If you're new to Persona 5 or have been itching to replay it, Royal is the definitive version of an already stellar game. Yeah, the Phantom Thieves are back and better than ever. Hey, thanks for watching our review. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new reviews and features almost every day. Now here's the question I have for you. What is a game that you wish had a completely different ending? Oh boy, this one sure did take a long time to review, so I'm really excited to get back to some shorter games. Look for reviews of Wengia and Can Androids Pray Blue in the coming days. Plus a very fun April Fool's Day joke that you won't see coming. Well, you will now that I warned you, but that shouldn't ruin the fun. If that sounds good to you, then I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.